the vampire that hunted her own kind, purposely turned by her hunter master, as to be able to stand against even the boldest of the creatures. Named Alexandra, my first sources about her were the writings of my ancestor Harold Oldry Jr. With help I learned more from Hereford Cathedral Library, where hidden books with details remain chained in place to this day. She was something of an urban legend among the sons of man at the time. I at first believed her association with my family was due only to their work as hunters, and history with an occult crusader turned vampire Lord Alpha, who at least 3 Oldrys contended with. But learning more from interactions with her contemporary allies, I've found the connection precedes Harold Jr. by decades, when Alexandra spent a brief time as a prisoner in the Sons of Man dungeon, St. George's Keep. Some believed Reinhold Oldry, a previous ancestor, set her free upon realizing the truth of her reputation. She continued her work, and I now know she monitored Reinhold's son Harold from time to time, a habit she seems to have never broken, as she has now been in indirect contact with me as well, giving me much needed assistance in handling our shared enemies that exist to this day. How did she become the most prolific hunter of her own kind? The answer goes back long before she was turned. As a young girl, her family was viciously attacked by a pack of rabid vampires. Her life was narrowly saved by the arrival of a genius hunter named Vincent, considered the great specialist among hunters of the day. He and his contemporaries held fading confidence in the deteriorating Sons of Men order, which was far from its glory days, and held fewer and fewer paladins. Vincent's faith had never been strongly in the church, rather the weaponry he could trust in his own hands. Later in life he hatched a plan to ensure mankind's ability to combat even the most powerful vampires. He took in the orphaned Alexandra, trained her to expert level in the use of every type of weapon known to man. Everything centuries of hunters had learned about vampires and their weaknesses, but most importantly, involved her in years of relief work with the many victims the creatures left in their wake, exposing her to the unquestionable truth of their horror, instilling a profound, immovable hatred for the beings that cared so little for any others. The final step in making her the ultimate vampire hunting weapon came without her consent, when Vincent purposefully infected her with the very curse herself. It was, however, a complete success. In her immortal, superpowered state, her conviction held, making her the most formidable vampire hunter of all time. Alexandra's transition into a vampire was especially traumatic, awakening chained to a wall, with no memory and a monstrous bloodlust. She survived those first few nights with blood-filled medical bottles delivered every dusk. Soon her memory began to return. At first just the creatures she had hunted, eventually even her turning by Vincent's hand. She would soon gain the strength to break her chains and find her way back to Vincent's manor, where she found only a large stack of dossiers, with details on numerous, increasingly powerful vampire targets, including some of the few remaining primevals, and most importantly, a magical rose in possession of an elder vampire, a rose that dripped with human blood, giving her the means to live on without taking human life, a tool more important to her hunt than any weapon. Years later she would be held prisoner for a short time in the Sons of Man dungeon, St. George's Keep, where this photo was taken, and she would first encounter the Oldry family, being set free by the paladin Reinhold. His grandson, Harold Jr., would go on to be her greatest ally, and convinced her to chronicle her tale in books that remain hidden in Hereford Cathedral Library. He also entrusted her with the Oldry family bestiary. She continues her work to this day. Easily the topic I receive the most questions about. You want her on video, a phone interview, any kind of direct interaction. But you have to remember, Alexandra is a vampire. She has no interest in internet fame, only a singular drive to the obsessions of her soul. Given the history with my family stretching back to St. George's Keep, many wonder why she doesn't give a more direct hand in my current predicaments. As another past Oldry ally seems to, the spirit of Bridget, the 19th century Celtic which connected to the Fae. Alexandra, in truth, is a vampire like any other, lost in the tragedies of her life, and able to move on from the primal drives instigated by them. It's just that for her, those drives are to hunt down her kind and save people from them. She requires human blood just as they do, turning into a mindless savage monster without it. Her hunter master planned well in her acquisition of the magical bleeding rose, for without the sustenance of this enchanted plant and an instilled need to end vampiric life, she would be a megalomaniac horror unto mankind, just like any of her countless brethren. Though whether she avoids other pitfalls of the curse, I cannot say.